Yeah, I would go ahead and get started.
Are you ready to broadcast?
All right. We'll call the meeting to order. The first agenda item is to approve the minutes from the July 23rd board meeting. And see if we have any changes that anybody has caught or wants to make on the minutes.
You want to take a roll call first?
Oh,
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I guess
I just thought of that. Go through the
we'll back
names.
up one step. We'll have everybody announce their attendance and who they are and their position.
Just the board members.
Okay. So Richard Haig, Chairman.
Dan Keller, Vice Chair.
Monty Sokup, KU.
Clancy Maloney, Board.
Dan Bourne, Board Member.
That is it.
And that's the board.
Ron Renz is here as a airport tenant.
All right.
All right. So now we'll review the July 23rd minutes. Does anyone have any changes they'd like to see made to those minutes? Okay, if not, we'll take a motion to approve the minutes as they are written.
This is Mike Kelly, Vice Chair. I move that we approve the minutes of the previous meeting as provided on the city's website without any changes.
Clancy
Monty.
Maloney, I second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Moved by Mike Kelly, seconded by Clancy. All in favor?
Aye.
Richard, I guess we need to do that individually since we're on Zoom. So Richard Haig, Chair. Aye.
Mike Kelly, Vice Chair. Aye.
Monty Sokup, aye.
Clancy, aye.
Dan Bourne, aye.
Okay, so it's passed unanimously, 5-0. Okay, next is public comment. If a member of the public would like to speak, if they could announce their name and make their comment. Okay, we'll go with no public comment. We'll move on to the regular agenda items. And first on the agenda is to consider the creation of a subcommittee to help coordinate the Lawrence stop for the Air Race Classic 2021.
All right. This is Amanda Saheen, airport manager. So we need to create a subcommittee of 2 to 3 board members. We can't have more than 3, but 2 would be fine too if that's how many people are interested in doing it. And that subcommittee will be used to organize any events for the racers, coordinate volunteers, recruit sponsors if needed for the events, and coordinate with the Air Race Classic Incorporated to meet any needs they have. We have had a couple kind of members of the public that have reached out wanting to be involved. So what I would like is that once we get this subcommittee set, or these couple people, to have a meeting with those couple people and talk about who else in the community we kind of want to invite into this planning group. We have had Michael Davidson with Explore Lawrence say he's interested in helping plan it. And the Local 99's group, Tamara Willits, they've emailed. So I think we've got a couple people that'll also be helping, and I'm sure you guys all know more people that would be willing to help. But I'm hoping that the board members that are on this subcommittee kind of can take the lead in everything and keep things moving along. So that's the goal of this.
So do we have any board members that would be interested in helping on the subcommittee?
Yes.
Well, this is
Clancy Maloney, I would be.
Yeah, Richard, I'd be also interested in that. This is Mike Kelly, Vice Chair. I have another city activity, the Lawrence Veterans Day Parade, that I'm the chair of that committee. And I think it would be a conflict of interest for me to be on two major event committees at the same time. So I'm going to decline to be on the committee, although I don't have any negative thoughts. I'm glad this event is coming, but I just don't think I can be, it would create an impropriety if I was on both. So I'm going to decline to be on it for the reasons I've stated.
If nobody else would, I'll volunteer to be the third advisory board member to be on the subcommittee. So,
Okay.
so I guess as the action that we'd take would be to appoint as a board. Do we need to have an official?
Let's just
'Cause there's
do
not really
it.
a vote?
I guess we can, I mean, I don't know if we need an action or not,
No,
to be honest. We probably don't.
I think just recognize the three members, Dan Bourne, Clancy, and myself, Richard, will be willing to work with them on a subcommittee. Now, coordinating that with us, would that be maybe you taking the lead, Clancy, since you're familiar with the race and helping walk us into it to bring us up to speed on what we need to do?
Sure, that's not a problem. I reviewed the race route yesterday, and Lawrence is about 3/4 of the way through the route. That could mean either of two things, depending on weather. Some racers, if they have good tailwinds, will do the whole route in 1 or 2 days instead of the 3 days that's allowed. And so that we don't know whether what we're going to wind up with, frankly, would be people stopping by for the hospitality and goodie bags or whatever else we come up with and refueling, or they're going to be here for overnight. So that's going to kind of be a rolling target, I think. But I have numerous volunteers already in my back pocket that would be willing to come up and work, including the 99s. And I know Tammy. So that's easy for me.
Okay. And as far as it's going for us to coordinate, so if we have a meeting with Clancy, it's not an open records violation if just the three of us are in
Right.
contact with Clancy. So we can actually interact
Yes.
directly with Clancy on this.
Yeah, I think to kick it off, what I'd like is maybe the next couple weeks, just us four, even with maybe Rick wants to join on a Zoom, and kind of get you guys rolling on the plan and really just kind of let you guys run with it and just kind of keeping me in the loop. And but yeah, since there's three, that three can meet, that subcommittee can meet, talk to each other. The only thing is, if you don't want to be going to other board members, that group, except for in an official setting of a meeting. So really, it needs to stay fairly contained for any of the meetings to those three board members or anybody else not on the board.
Correct. Which I think
May
sounds
I-
good.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, it sounds like we will have quite a few other people in the community that will be participating to help us make this event a good one.
My question, Amanda, is do you have a contact at the ARC, and would you pass that along so I can talk to them? I know how to get a hold of Tamara, so that's easy enough. And then, I don't know exactly what they're going to need to do. I know that they have protocols for timing lines and that kind of thing, and they may even have their own people lined up for that. We'll have to find all of that out.
Yeah, and I'm not doing a very good job here of announcing my name when I speak. We all need to do better at
Okay.
that because we're not very good at this. Amanda Saheen. Yes, I have a contact that I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but I've got several emails from her because we've had some kind of initial conversations. I know the last email I got, they were supposed to be sending some kind of brochures that should be arriving here to the city this week to kind of give out to people. And they said that they would soon be reaching out to us to find out who the race chair would be, head timer, that type of thing. And then she said if that's the person that we'd like to start coordinating with, that's fine. So I'll kind of do a handoff there.
Okay.
At that point, once we kind of get this subcommittee established, I'll hand off that communication to you guys. And, I'm always there if you need to call me or need me for something. But I know they mentioned with COVID, this is obviously, they're kind of planning that everything will be right with the world in June. Things may change, but I think that they're going to potentially be looking for some like health and safety protocols, some of those timing volunteers, that type of thing too. So I know they'll have some requirements, but yeah, Clancy, sound like you're somewhat familiar with it. So I'll get you in touch with the right person.
I am. Clancy Maloney. Thanks. I'm pretty familiar with what, having raced myself, I kind of know what it's going to be like, but I've always been on the other side of the coin except running a timing line. I've never done the hospitality aspect of it. So it'll be a learning experience, but it can't be that hard, right? So as long as I got the names, I can get a hold of everybody.
Yeah. This is Richard Haig. Thank you, Clancy. Okay, the number 2 agenda item is directing staff toward the recommendation to the City Commission to change the name of the Lawrence Airport to Lawrence Regional Airport from Lawrence Municipal Airport. And so what we'd be considering is just sending this to the City Commission for them to consider the name change and letting them take it to staff and move forward with it. So if we have any discussion on people's feelings toward the name change or their thoughts on the recommending it to the City Commission.
This is Mike Kelly, Vice Chair. I support the name change. I think we need to tell the City Commission where we sit in the hierarchy of airports as far as other airports from smaller communities call themselves regional. And there are some standards. So I think that stuff needs to be captured in the memorandum for the City Commission so they understand why we're doing this. It's not some arbitrary maneuver.
Yeah, this is Amanda Seen. I was hoping to have Rick help me write kind of the memo to City Commission. He's pretty good at selling that. So if you guys are comfortable, I know he's kind of spoken to this board before about what he feels like is the reason to do this. I mean, we kind of have 2 options. We can, if you guys are comfortable with that direction, letting Rick and I kind of take it, or if we want to hold this a few months, the board could write a letter that's approved at the next meeting to submit, but that, with us not meeting very regularly, that kind of throws things off because I had that thought. So kind of up to you guys. If you're comfortable that you feel like Rick and I can get your thoughts captured in the memorandum, then we're comfortable doing that.
This is Dan Bourne, and I'm comfortable with Amanda and Rick writing the memo.
This is Clancy, and I agree with that. I think we've thrashed this through a couple of times already, so I can't see any problem with that.
Okay. So I guess the action for the board then would be to approve Amanda Sahin and Rick Bryant to come up with a letter to present to the City Commission proposing the name change from Lawrence Municipal Airport to Lawrence Regional Airport on the behalf of the Airport Advisory Board. Is everybody okay with that?
And Amanda Sahin, let me just say that it would be basically asking for their approval to do the change with the caveat that if they do approve that, we have to go through the ordinances to officially do it. And we would bring those ordinances back through this board and then to City Commission for passing. So it wouldn't be an immediate thing, but just so you guys are aware, kind of the process that Diane Stoddard, our Assistant City Manager, thought it'd be good to take it to them, make sure they agree with it, and then we kind of come back with the formality of the ordinances, at a future meeting.
This is Mike Kelly, Vice Chair. I'll make a motion that we advise Amanda to work with Mr. Bryant and prepare the memorandum to change the name to Regional Airport, and that we understand that there will be subsequent actions that will need to come back through the board before the final legal authority is given by the City Commission.
This is Clancy Maloney. I'll second that.
Okay. We'll take a vote. Richard Haig, Chair. Aye.
Mike Kelly, Vice Chair, aye.
Clancy Maloney, Board, aye.
Monty Sokup, aye.
Dan Bourne, aye.
Okay, so it passes 5-0, and we'll have Amanda and Rick work on that on our behalf. Okay, staff items. We have, this is Richard Haig, Chair. We'll have Amanda Sahin bring us up to date on the runway update and the KDOT, KAIP, and the tenant occupancy.
Okay, Amanda Sahin, Airport Manager. Quick update on the runway. As of, I think probably about 4:45 this afternoon, I have heard that it looks like we are on schedule for tomorrow at 6 p.m. The weather this week has not been great, but I think they've been able to work around it, and the goal tomorrow is to finish kind of the first coat of painting. So let's all hope that that rain tonight dries out quickly in the morning and it doesn't continue to rain throughout the morning, because you can't put paint on wet pavement. So the goal is tomorrow kind of to, Bettis has got some crews that are still doing some of the shouldering and some of the cleanup out there. But the painters will be back out as soon as the pavement dries to finish up their part, to be able to get that open by the end of the day tomorrow. We've also had city crews out checking all the lights, replacing as needed. My understanding is there's been quite a few light bulbs burnt out for a while out there. So hopefully when this reopens, we've actually got all the lights back working again. There was, I think, 2 city employees out there today just changing lights, repairing some of the lights that were damaged, that type of thing. So we're scheduled to reopen everything tomorrow at 6 p.m. The paving was completed this last Saturday, and I think in the end it turned out to be even though we had some challenges, the product that we're getting is pretty good. And in approximately 30 days, we'll have to do a second coat of paint on all these markings. So there will be some kind of short-term closures once we get that schedule. It's a tough time of year to try to schedule that very far in advance, because they start getting into where half their days they can't paint because of temperatures. So we'll just be waiting to hear from that subcontractor for what days they can get us on the schedule in about a month to come back and finish that work. I think next week right now the plan is to kind of do that final walkthrough out there with the contractor, everything dependent on weather. So hopefully things will be wrapping up and you guys will still see some communications. We're sending to the airport tenants, trying to send pretty regular communications. So we'll keep that up as more work needs to occur out there. If there's any NOTAMs that are issued, we'll make sure we put that out to all the tenants and keep them aware of any of the continuing work. But I think the bulk of the project, hopefully by tomorrow, is done. So any questions on that one?
Amanda, Clancy Maloney, is 0119 open now?
This is Amanda Sahin. Yes, it closed Tuesday during daylight hours and then again Wednesday during daylight hours. I believe they opened it late yesterday afternoon. The NOTAM got canceled a few hours early, and that reopened at that time. So it's been open for a little bit, but we had to close it Tuesday during the day and then Wednesday for the painting at the intersection.
Clancy Maloney, will that stay open through Friday? Or are they going to close it occasionally, or do we know?
This is Amanda Sahin. That should not reclose again until the next painting, unless something's identified on a punch list that requires them to go out and do any work in the intersection. My guess is most things should be minor and should be short-term closures. We shouldn't see like days long unless the pavement's passed all the testing and everything. So there really shouldn't be anything major at this point. But there could be punch list items that affect the runways, and so we'll see how that goes once we get that list. But 30 days from now, approximately, you will see some closures for that paint. And both are going to have to close at a certain point of time because they'll have to do the intersection again. They'll have to get that second coat and the reflective beads down.
Clancy Maloney, thanks. I'm going to bring my airplane back on Saturday, so I really want to know.
There you go.
Should be good.
Thanks.
This is Ron Renz. Question, there's also the ILS on runway 33 is decommissioned as well at the present time. Is that going to be back recommissioned again on Friday with the airport opening, or do we know?
This is Amanda Saheen. It should be. Rick has been working with the FAA on that, so if for some reason it's not, I'm assuming there'll be a NOTAM that addresses that, but I know he's been working with them on that
Okay.
issue.
And another question I've got is, I know a number of us were on the NOTAM notifier site, and I've been on for a number of years. I got a notice that I've been off of that. Therefore, I'm no longer getting emails for NOTAMs that are coming out. And those are really useful for airport tenants to do some planning, because we get a little bit heads up warning before the flight we go, we don't have to check NOTAMs. We know it's coming already. And I'd like to request that I get put back on that again. I don't know why that change was made, but for some reason it was made, and it's very useful to be on that, because we can do a lot of planning for when we're trying to fly. I know Lloyd was on that as well, and that's really useful.
Ron, this is Richard Haig. Now, was that a list from the FAA, or is it a list through the city that gives you those notices?
That's part of the FAA's FNS notifier system.
Okay.
At one time, I was on the list to be able to issue NOTAMs, as was Lloyd, so that we had a number of people that could issue NOTAMs. If somebody wasn't available, NOTAMs could still be issued. That's now changed. I'm pretty sure Lloyd can't do that anymore. I don't know who's on that list anymore. And there should be more than one person. It ought to be an aviation knowledgeable person that's on that list to be able to do that. It ought to be someone that's really familiar with the airport. And the other part of that list is anybody that's on that list gets notified whenever a NOTAM is issued, so just know it's coming. And that's really good from a planning standpoint. It's been very useful in the past when NOTAMs get out that make no sense, and you go to whoever issued the NOTAM and say, hey, this doesn't make sense, we need to change that.
Well, I remember when this was a bigger issue years ago, there were some NOTAMs put on our airport that nobody was aware of until they went to fly. And some of them we didn't understand. One was, I think, a lighted tower or tower issue. And so we may check into that to see, because the biggest part of that was there were NOTAMs affecting Lawrence Airport that nobody with the city even knew existed and didn't have any control over. So, yeah, that's one that we'll have to, maybe.
I can tell you, Lloyd's on the list. This is Amanda. Lloyd's on the list. Lauren is on the list because he does the mowing. Rick is on the list to be able to do them. I believe those are the three I'm aware of that are, I mean, we obviously don't want to just give everybody, ability to issue them. The city wants to keep that fairly contained. But those are the people that have issued NOTAMs in the past 2 months that I'm aware of.
No, I agree. I'm not saying that everybody needs to be on the list, and I don't necessarily need to be on the list to issue NOTAMs. But on that list also is the ability to receive NOTAMs. You can put a number of people on that list to be able to receive NOTAMs. That doesn't mean you can issue NOTAMs, but to just receive that they're coming up. That's a really important list, I think. And I think that anybody that's part of the airport that wants to be on that list should be able to be on that list. I know Lifestar would like to be on that list. I know I want to be on that list. I'm sure Lloyd wants to be on that list, because that's
I'll have to check into it and see. I don't know if that's a city list or if that's a sign up.
No,
that's a FAA list.
It's an FAA list. It's an FAA list. If it's an FAA website, it's called FNS Notifier. It's what it is, and it's part of the FAA's FNS NOTAM search system.
Ron, do you know for sure? Are you not able to sign up for those through FAA?
I was on the list. My understanding is that had to be approved by the airport operator. I think there's somebody at the city is the master for that system for the city, and that's relevant and should be that way. And my understanding of the way it works is you request to be on that list. that's gotta be approved by who's ever
Check into
on the city master list, and then you get put on the list.
So, Ron, this is,
I think that's the way it works. I'm not 100% certain, but I'm pretty sure. I mean, I know Lloyd used to be on that list. I think he got taken off, and it sounds like maybe he's back on again, Lloyd. I don't know. You need to.
well,
You're
This
muted.
Lloyd, as far as I know, I haven't well, I did correct one, I think, for Rick, so I think I'm able to do it now, Ron. I do see some notifications, so I'm guessing I'm still on it from that reason. But it seemed like when you request that, Ron, I saw a pop-up that said Ron had requested to be on the list. Now, I don't know who can approve that, because I couldn't do anything with it, or should I guess. So I'm guessing if it's Lauren that's the master, well, actually, I think it's Jason, Amanda, that's the master. So Jason should be able to take that notification when Ron signs up and says, yes, he can. And again, I think it's two different things. I think it is one that allows you just to get the notification when somebody issues one so that you can see if it makes sense or not, rather than being able to just issue it.
This is Amanda. I'll check into that and see if it's something we can add. We can definitely do it. If I find other direction that it's, hey, you got to go to this FAA thing, I'll let you guys know. Because it's a little new to me, but I'll definitely check with Jason, because I do know Jason's the one that added Rick to be able to issue them.
so, yeah,
Because that changed about a month ago, something like that. I think I was in Colorado or Utah, and all of a sudden I got this email. You've been requested. You requested to get off this list, so you're now off this list. It's like
Okay.
well, yeah,
never did it.
yeah, Ron, this is Richard.
At the same time, I think that was the same time there were some changes. I think that's when Lloyd got off the list temporarily, and it sounds like you're back on again.
Clancy Maloney, it seems to me that anybody who's a tenant at the airport would like to be on the notification list too. And maybe Jason could put out some kind of email to the tenants to see if they want to be added to the list also. I know I would.
Yeah, this is Amanda Seen. Let me check into this and make sure that that's the intent of this list. And if it is, we can definitely put a email communication out to the tenants and try to get everybody added at one time, so Jason's not having a full-time job of over the next 2 months of adding people one by one. So yeah, I would rather get everybody signed up at one time if that's kind of the goal of this. So.
Well, it sounds to me like there's two different lists, and that Ron was on the same level that Lloyd was on. And somebody may have said, well, is Ron an official of the airport to make official decisions? And somebody may have made that call that Ron wouldn't be able to write NOTAMs for the airport on the city's behalf.
Okay. Yeah,
But,
okay.
and then I think that it sounds to me like your notification kind of fell away with that standing. But I do believe that anybody can sign up for notifications without any association with the city to be notified. Because if you're a pilot that frequents the Lawrence Airport, you're going to want to know if there's NOTAMs as soon as they're issued. And it'll pop up and send you a notification or an email to let you know what's happening. So I think there's two different levels, and I don't think the city has to approve the information level. They just have to approve the initializing NOTAMs, writing them. So I bet there's two, and Amanda's going to look into it and see.
I'll check on it. Let you know, Ron.
Yeah, because I mean, at one time I was on the be able to issue NOTAMs list, but then when they went to the computer system, I think I was off that list, but I was still on the being notified list,
Okay.
and that's what changed. So,
Okay. So the KDOT grants.
Okay, so the 2022 KDOT KAIP grants were due the end of September. So I worked with ADG and with Steve Lashley with the city. He's like our kind of pavement guru. And I want to thank both ADG and Steve for all the help, kind of looking at what we needed to do out there, and also looking at the estimates for what we did, what we want to do. We ended up, after talking to KDOT, splitting this grant into actually 3 separate applications, because the feedback we heard last year when Chuck applied for this grant for the taxi lanes by the T-hangars was that it was too much money. They have a certain pot of money and to split over a lot of airports, and the ask was too much. So talking to them, it made more sense to ask for they said, you can submit as many as you want. And so we tried to break it into smaller pieces so that maybe even if they just fund a piece this year, then maybe the year after we can get the next piece. But we went ahead and submitted all three to show them kind of the need. So first order of priority was the taxi lane east of T-Hanger Building A between Eurotech and Building A. There's a lot of drainage issues in that area right now, and it's causing some more deterioration in that area. So that was the total estimated construction cost for that one was $113,414. The second priority we had was the taxi lane that is west of T-Hanger Building A. That also includes widening to 25 feet, which is the standard that we should build it to now if we touch that pavement. And we're going to attempt to address the slope at the north end as much as possible. There's some constraints, but the slope there is above the FAA, I guess, maximum. And that estimate's $91,513. And then the third application was basically, and both of those kind of extend along the area they're in down to the north edge of B and C. So all of that pavement that's kind of between B, C, and A are included in those two. And then basically the third application was kind of everything that's in between B and C or on each side of it. So kind of those three major areas that are to the east or west of either of those buildings was the third application. That was $112,844. So the city would have to fund design and 10% of construction of whichever ones we received, hopefully at least one. We should be notified the first quarter of 2021, and the funds would be available in July of 2021. So just want to let you know those are in and they're being reviewed. So let's hope that we can get one of those and at least get some of that pavement out there in better shape.
Make baby steps.
Yeah. So does anybody have any questions on that?
Amanda, what happened with the ADA upgrades and the planning for that? Is that way down the road?
This is Amanda Seheen. I'm glad you brought that up because with everything going on, it's kind of not something on the top of my mind. But yeah, that is something in the city budget at this time for next year out at the airport. So it's trying to remember off the top of my head. Is it $120,000? I can't remember how much is in the budget. It's approximately that for next year. So we'll start having some conversations early next year on getting a consultant hired. The goal with that first priority is going to be all the ADA improvements that are needed for that building. So the bathrooms are going to be quite a bit of work because my understanding is we're pretty sure that we can't make them work within their existing walls. So it will need some reconfiguration. I don't know how much that's going to cost and how much that'll take up, but the goal is to do that stuff, any of the counter heights, any door swing issues, that type of thing, to kind of hit that as the first things. If we have money left over, the goal would then to be look at painting, flooring, those type of things in the terminal. There's also, I think, probably some work in the parking lot for ADA that needs to be done. So we won't really know all we can do with that money until we get a designer on board and start really looking at how many walls we have to move and stuff. We have been talking with Lloyd, Hetrick, and Doug Compton about potentially keeping them in the loop with those improvements, and if they want to kind of come in as a participant, if we're a little short to be able to get some of these things done that they're also wanting to get done, that maybe it's something that they want to participate on to help us get that terminal up to the level that everybody wants it at. So I think we'll keep Lloyd and Doug there in the loop in that conversation as we start moving into design, and we'll see what we can get done out there in that terminal.
Clancy Maloney here. Does the plan include automatic doors for the entryway and that kind of thing? Because I know that even I have trouble sometimes opening the doors, and I'm, more or less able-bodied. So, some kind of button to push like in hospitals or something would be nice for anybody who's in a wheelchair or something, for example.
This is Amanda Seheen. Yeah, I mean, it would include anything that's required per ADA currently, which that should be part of that. I'm not a building person to know all of the things. I know counter heights and you know, the door issues and the parking lot and bathrooms are big components. I mean, Gary knows more about that, obviously, but yeah, I believe that would be captured.
Lance Maloney, thanks.
Lloyd, Hetrick, Amanda, in that grant request for KDOT, did we not submit that taxi lane for the future development there on the east side of the airport?
This is Amanda Seen. We did not. We talked about that at the last meeting. That's something that we'll have some conversations. We don't even have an estimate for that yet because we don't have any of a revised design from CL. I'm going to talk about that in the next item, but that's something the city will have continued conversations. We had to prioritize what we were going to submit. The likelihood is we're only going to get one of these. From what I heard from KDOT, anything over about $100,000 ask was probably not going to happen. And so looking at everything out there and what we needed to prioritize for $100,000 or less, it's pretty limited what we could ask for. So that $113,000 one, when you take out what our cost is, or what our 10%, we're pretty close to that $100,000 ask that they kind of implied to me was about their max consideration. So if you want, Lloyd, I can jump into the next thing. I was going to say that we're waiting on FAA airspace review for Hangar 2. I expect that any time. We're also waiting on revised plans for the taxi lane widths and estimates so we can continue conversations on ground lease terms and city participation on the taxi lane to that hangar. I don't know, Lloyd, if you have any update on the status of that.
Well, this Lloyd, Hetrick again. At this point, we're on hold until we get something figured out on the taxi lane. Once that's approved or got a direction forward, then we'll want to pursue Hangar 2 there to the south. But until we get a taxi lane there to get airplanes to it, we really can't do much with it. As far as the airspace, I think it would be done by now, but I would say we probably need to stay with ADG and find out where we're at with that.
This is Amanda. We just talked to the FAA probably about a month ago. There was some issues with the submittals that came in for the construction areas and stuff. So they were reviewing it, but they implied to me that it would be done about right now. So it should be any time on that. But I mean, Lloyd, the taxi lane issue is kind of in your guys' court. When we talked last, I mean, I've emailed CL and I've told him, hey, you know, it's this width. We need you to redo the plans and we need an estimate. I mean, we talked to, I think, Doug. You were on that call, I believe, when we talked to Doug about that and said, like, we really need to know, we need the design figured out so that we can get an estimate so that we can have conversations about the taxi lane, but it's kind of in land plan's court.
Okay, and I think Sandy's on that too, because Sandy, she saw the approval or the change. CL made the change to narrow that down. So far as I know, land plans work with Sandy, but I don't know. I can reach out to land plan again and see. But so you're saying what you're waiting on is an estimate for that, so that you can go to city staff or the city commissioners.
Yeah, we'll need like some plans. So he's going to end up having to do eventually some public improvement plans for that section, because we'll need to know, you know, the pavement section and everything, and get an estimate so that we can review and validate, you know, that estimate based on the bids we've been seeing. So we can kind of all agree on the cost we're agreeing on is X, and then we can talk to city manager's office about the agreement with who's going to do what regarding that. But I think until we have a dollar amount and we've agreed on the width, it can't really go anywhere. Sandy has just reached out to me about a week ago, and she hasn't said anything about receiving anything.
No, she was in on the changes, as I understand. If she's waiting on something from CL, I'm not aware of it. But let me reach out to land plan.
Okay, that would be great. We would like to keep that moving too. So I think the FAA approval is just a matter of time at this point. I mean, I think these conversations are definitely going to take longer than the FAA is, because like I said, it was about a month ago. I was on a call with John Koresh, and who does the airspace review, and Jason Knipp with the FAA, and Dana with ADG, and I think he got them everything they needed to finish that review. So it was just kind of in their last couple steps. So we should be seeing that soon. Also, this is Amanda Seheen again. I wanted to let everybody know T-hangers are finally back at 100% occupancy. We had a few kind of commit to that last T-hanger and then decommit and round and round, but we finally got a lease signed. Mac Boatwright, he's purchasing a plane, I believe in November. He plans to have a plane and be out there at the airport, so. That is all I have unless anybody has questions.
Does anybody have any other questions for Amanda?
Clancy does. Clancy Maloney here. Can somebody tell me what happened with the Versa Air thing? Did they back out? And did I miss that?
And this is Amanda Seheen. Yeah, they, I mean, I haven't heard for sure at the time. What they said was they were looking at a kind of a more rural, I think, private airstrip, and we were on the back burner at that point. Now, I don't know what's happened with that, but they have not come back around, so.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to know if we heard anything.
Okay. The next
Yeah,
item.
this is Mike Kelly. On the previous issue of the grants, the 10% city share, does that show up as a line item in capital improvement plan? Or is that somewhere else in the city budget?
This is Amanda Seheen. Right now, it's unbudgeted, so we got approval from City Commission to submit these grants with the agreement that if we got any of them, there would be a budget amendment that has to go forward to allocate those funds, those matching funds.
Anyone else for Amanda? Okay, this is Richard Haig, Chair, and we wanted, some people have brought up the emergency management and exercises and fire and medical at the airport. And to bring everybody kind of up to date, in the fall of 2014, we had a hazmat call at the KU hangar at the airport for vapors of unknown origin creating an issue. When fire and medical showed up at the airport, they went to the main terminal building, to the repair hangar, to the community hangar, and not to the KU hangar until about a half an hour, 45 minutes later. It turned out to be a non-emergency, that the odors were actually people in the second half of the hangar painting the floors, and the people in the first half not realizing that the vapors were from the painting process going on the other side of their hangar. But it brought up the question of how does the fire department respond, or emergency medical respond to issues at the airport? How do they know locations? What are their procedures? And at that time, there was not a wildlife fence at the airport, so it was a lot more open than it is now. And so talking with Terry Smith, who was then the director of Douglas County Emergency Management, she had some grant proposals that they were working on for hazmat exercises. So they included both a tabletop at that time and then later a full-scale exercise to develop programs for emergencies at the airport. So the tabletop exercise happened May 7th of 2015. We brought together about 50 different agencies to participate in the tabletop exercise, from the hospital to Burt Nash to KU to Leavenworth County, Douglas County. We brought in emergency agencies from all around the area to participate and put their input in, and simulated a commuter aircraft crashing into ironically, a egg spray storage truck and having a hazardous material spill. And so with the egg company wanting to come to the airport, it kind of fit with that exercise. So the tabletop exercise was completed in May of 2015, and then another grant proposal was presented for a live exercise, and they received the approval for 2 live exercises, one away from the airport and one at the airport, which were coordinated and happening both on the same day. So September 20th of 18, the live exercise took place to develop and basically showcase what the fire medical would do, police department would do in case there was an accident at the airport, how they would respond, and then develop procedures that needed to take place at that time. So both of those were developed, procedures were made. Along the way, we developed a common name for all the buildings at the Lawrence Airport with their physical addresses, along with points of access to the airport, easiest points of access for each one of those items. Those were amended when the fence was put up. But one example that I was telling Amanda a little bit earlier this evening is Stuber's Hangar is no longer Stuber's Hangar. So that's one that would have to be, we should notify the dispatch that is now Eurotech, not Stuber Research. And so as things change, we should update some of those. On down the road, we've had a lot of large charters requesting to land at the Lawrence Airport, and as some of their operations require fire and medical to be standing by on arrival and departure. And so the city, and I don't have an ordinance number for you, we can research that and find it for you. City passed an ordinance that as long as the equipment is available, Douglas County Fire and Medical will have units standing by at the airport in those times. So we just have to make a request ahead of time saying, hey, we've got this 30-passenger aircraft coming in. They've requested fire and medical standby. And would there be units available? And if there are, unless there's something big going on in the city of Lawrence, they'll provide the equipment for us. We have had fire and medical provide equipment when we've had like former presidents land and different dignitaries land that they have provided emergency services at the airport. When the President of Columbia came in, they put in a lot more than just the Lawrence and Douglas County assets. They brought in the bomb squad from Overland Park. They brought in, a lot more security, and had to just stepped it up all the way around the airport. In fact, when the President of Columbia was here, they brought in armored vehicles from Maryland to transport him to and from the airport. So those assets are available. As the air race approaches, if that's one of the requests for the air race, then we can work with Douglas County EMS and see what we can do to get those assets at the airport during those times. Does anybody have any questions about those?
Yeah, it's Clancy Maloney. Thanks, I appreciate that. I'll make sure that I get some data from the Air Race Classic folks and see what they require along that line, especially about COVID sorts of things. Once I've established contact. My question now is, are there plans to ask for grants for a regular exercise like this at all? Or is that something we even need to be looking at? I mean, people change, obviously buildings change, as we've just discovered the names of them at least. And training, people leave various training or various departments like fire and medical and police and that kind of thing. So is there anything in the pipeline on that, or do we think that there ought to be?
Okay. Well, the two grants that provided the money for the tabletop and the live exercise were through hazmat. They weren't through, they were hazmat grants, nothing through the FAA or aviation related. But my personal opinion is that it would be good to have at least scheduled one time annually to review any changes and procedures at the airport and address them, maybe not through a full exercise, but maybe coordinate with fire medical, the law enforcement, and go over those details. Because things do change, just like when we're talking tonight and Stuber Research is gone, the fire medical inspected the hangar that was just built for Hetrick Air, but they air services, but they haven't necessarily upgraded their procedures to reflect it as far as the dispatch goes and the equipment goes. As far as access points, it's always good. And if the city does develop funds to automate the other gates, it would be good to advise the dispatch and the fire department that those are automated, because right now they're expecting 2 manual gates and 1 automated gate. And so how they approach the airport and get onto the field should there be an incident, that can be very important time-wise.
Clancy Maloney here. Yeah, you've made my point. And the other thing I don't know if this is totally pertinent or not, but given what's going on with COVID right now all across the country, I don't know what capability would be with hospital and that sort of thing if there were some kind of further emergency. So, or for example, people getting transferred in and that sort of thing to accommodate that. So I don't know how that needs to be folded into the mix either, but I agree with you. I think an annual sit down and tabletop review and going over would be a good start.
Well,
This is Mike Kelly. I agree with what Clancy just said, and Richard, I agree with a lot of what you said there. I have a couple of thoughts. One thought is we need to understand the exact process by which these place names are updated in the geographical information system, the GIS that the city and county uses. And we need to make sure that any changes are properly entered into that system. And then we need to make sure that that system is properly updated with dispatch at the County Emergency Management Dispatch Office. And if we don't understand that process, we're liable to get in a fix that we're trying to avoid here. So we need to, Amanda, if you may need to check with your GIS staff member and understand how often that GIS person exchanges data with dispatch when cultural features change in the GIS database. The second thing I would add and suggest, there's a board that does emergency management for Lawrence and Douglas County that advises similar to what we do for the airport. We might want to ask to get on their agenda at least once a year and just go talk to them about things that we're concerned about. So that might be something that we would need to develop, or maybe we just ask Amanda to go and speak to them at one of their meetings about airport issues. And it could be more than just the GIS designation of the buildings on the airport. It might be something additional. We have a new ag chemical business. I think that's something emergency management people like to know about if there's a new potential problem. And I know it's a wonderful business and they're doing things safe and they have permits and all that stuff, but it's a new potential problem if you're looking at it from an emergency management point of view. So I've yacked a lot there, but I think this is something we need to pay close attention to make sure it doesn't create a problem in the future.
Clancy Maloney here. I agree with you, Mike. I think that coordination with the emergency management folks would be a good thing.
This is Richard Haig again. Clancy, the one thing that you mentioned about LMH, and this is one thing that I got out of both the tabletop exercise and the live exercise. We actually had simulated bodies at the airport for injury, for triage. They also had simulated people with contamination showing up at the hospital. And the one thing that really impressed me was how many procedures and policies LMH already has in place for such an emergency. LMH is unbelievably prepared for this type of event. And their participation and their staff, how they performed during these exercises was incredible. So the just like how they deal with COVID and pre-testing and things now, they're dealing with the hazmat and the emergency that we provided. And we weren't the only exercise providing them a test that day. There was another hazmat exercise going on out by the soccer fields for another different simulated accident. So they were dealing with two scenarios on the same day. So they were really getting loaded up, and it really was impressive on the procedures they already have. And so, but yeah, for the airport to go and review and make sure we're just in good communication. Lloyd's crew, one of the outcomes of this study was Lloyd's staff, who are basically the front line should something happen at the airport, were up to date and brought into the field of what their responsibilities or what their actions could be to help in this type of scenario to get things where they needed to be as soon as they could.
Nancy Maloney. I couldn't agree more about LMH. I've had some experiences with them myself, and we're very lucky to have that kind of facility in Lawrence, Kansas. I'll tell you what. This is my final question about this. Is there any need for safety training or emergency management training amongst the tenants at the airport? For example, what kind of, I know it's in our contracts, but what they keep in their hangars and what kind of materials and that kind of thing. Should or could that be folded into any of this? That's just a question. It's not an opinion.
I think that is a good issue to address. I don't think that the tenants are supposed to have any hazardous material stored in hangars. I think the most hazardous thing that should be in the hangars would be, compressed gas for oxygen on board aircraft and things like that. We did address during this scenario some of the aircraft, and the fire department was looking into a list of different aircraft that have the ballistic parachutes on them, which are an explosive device, and the ability to contact and get information through the FAA as quickly as possible as the type of aircraft through an N number or through the flight services that help them approach should a scenario happen or should something happen, to give them the idea of what they would be dealing with.
Yeah, this is Amanda C. I was going to add one thing that we've kind of talked about with Rick, and things have been kind of crazy, is that at some point we'd like to go through all the T hangars and just kind of do an annual maintenance inspection, and also kind of look and see if we see anything of concern, and then directly talk to the tenant to be like, hey, we were inspecting for maintenance and we saw this that really shouldn't be in your hangar, and that can be an education conversation more than anything. So I think that's on our list as something we'd like to do, so that we can make sure that those T hangars are being used responsibly.
This is Mike Kelly. I support that, having an annual meeting with the tenants and walking through their hangar and making sure that they have their safety stuff squared away. And I do think we should do that on a non-adversarial basis, but on a cooperative basis as much as possible. One other thought occurred to me. The Civil Air Patrol sometimes runs exercises, and they may use our airport as just a reference point in the exercise, or they may want to use it as part of the exercise. So we need to talk probably to the Civil Air Patrol of Kansas and ask them to make sure they notify the proper city people before they plug our airport into any of their work.
Mike, that was actually an issue about a year ago. The Civil Air Patrol was doing a lost aircraft exercise out of the Topeka Billard, and they were referencing an aircraft lost just north of the Lawrence Airport, but they were using common frequencies that were picked up by everybody in the area, including Douglas County Emergency Management, and they came ready to go to the Lawrence Airport, ready to locate a downed aircraft just 5 miles or 3 miles north of the Lawrence Airport, in which case it took a little while to diffuse the situation and realize it was just an exercise. And that's where, like when the live exercise was done at the Lawrence Airport, every communication began with, this is just an exercise. And the Civil Air Patrol did not use such verbiage at that time. I'm sure that they do use it now. But when they were communicating with each other, it got out of hand that time. And so I think that's been addressed as far as their ability. They can still use the Lawrence Airport as a reference point, but they will use the term, this is an exercise, and let everybody know that there's not an actual emergency.
Yeah, this is Ron Renz. I was actually part of that. I ended up being part of that. It happened to be the week when Sean became our acting fire chief. So he was brand new for that. But it turned out good. There was a debriefing with the fire and medical system after that. And they increased some of their procedures. Lloyd improved some of his procedures. And we then tied in with the emergency management exercise simulation had been done. So there was it was a really good, could have been a bad situation, turned out to be a really good learning experience for everybody. And I think everybody responded well. The fire medical people responded real well, and the police responded real well and it came out as a real positive event rather than it could have been a negative event.
Mike Kelly here. Sometimes we learn more from failure than from success. So it sounded like we had a little bit of a failure to communicate in that exercise, but we learned a lot from it.
Yeah, we sure did. We sure did.
Okay. Any other questions about the emergency management exercises that were done? Okay, we'll move on to the FBO report.
Lloyd Hetrick, a couple of things. I guess while I'm thinking of it, man, and I don't know if it's on the list or below. I hadn't realized how bad 119 paint is until I was flying the other day, and of course we're getting the new paint there. I don't know that that's something that could be done when they shut that down again to put some paint on it, but it's pretty much faded away. If you haven't seen it, you probably ought to look at it tomorrow when you're out or something, and peek at that and see if we can get it somewhere to get it done here for too long. I guess I'm surprised. Heard from FAA on it, but I don't know when the last time they did a airport inspection. Have you heard or?
And this is Amanda Saheen. So we actually have been trying to get a price from Sillicin & Sons for it. They're pretty busy. They've already told us they'll get me a price, but that they would not be able to accommodate us at the time they come back for their 30-day. They said we'd have to get on their schedule sometime next year. So I'm waiting on a price from them. And then we will see what that cost is and if we can make it work in next year's budget. And then we would have to get on their schedule for that. So it's something that, I was thinking, well, maybe they could just do it when they're out here. But it's just, their schedule's pretty tight, is my understanding. They're pretty booked up. So it's on the radar, I'll put it that way. And we're looking at it, but sounds like we can't even get a contractor out here, this winter.
Amanda, this is Clancy Maloney. Have you looked at volunteer labor for that? If the city supplies paint, sometimes the 99s and other organizations will volunteer to do the work, unless there's some other issue that it can't just be done the way it is now.
I wonder if that's the case since this is regulation, but yeah, we've done that like the city provided.
Done it on the runway though?
Not on the runway. We did it the taxiway, the compass road, or the ramp. The compass rose on the ramp has been painted by the 99s. The segmented circle in the middle where the windsock is, those were just all coming apart, and the city provided the paint, and we provided the labor to get those painted up a couple of years ago.
I can check on it. I'm not.
So
I'm not sure with the on the runway if that's different, but I can ask.
Having volunteers in the active area, but
Nancy Maloney here again. The only thing I know is that I've actually done it several times at the Aspen Airport on the ramp. We've painted names. I've painted runway names on runways. I've painted numbers and striping on runways.
There you go.
So I know it's been done. Whether there's some legal issue with the city, that I don't know. But I do know that, especially in view of the Air Race Classic coming next year, we might be able to get a couple of chapters of 99s and the EAA and whoever else to come out and help us someday this spring.
Spruce it up a little bit for us.
Yeah, let me. I'll pursue both directions here. Both getting the quote from Sillicin & Sons and this, and we'll see what report back to you guys at the first meeting next year. So.
You got it.
Amanda, this is Mike Kelly. If you get pushback from somebody in the city staff, remind them that they allow public groups to do art projects on city streets and on city buildings. And sometimes those are permitted through the city commission and sometimes they're not. And so I think that responsible people that try to improve the airport safety at cost of materials only ought to be supported. I'd really appreciate it if you get a pushback and say, no, we can't do that. We have to hire a contractor to do that unless there is an FAA regulation that says these people have to survey, you know, the paint markings, you know, with GPS down to millimeter accuracy or something. And I doubt that's the case.
Well, I think the template's already on the runway, so it'd be pretty easy to follow.
Clancy Maloney here, precisely that, unless there's some reason that it has to be changed. It's dead easy to do that kind of stuff. And the other thing I might mention is the 99s have been doing this for, let me see, 1929 till now. That's roughly
91 years.
80 or 90 years we've been doing this kind of thing. So I think it's a good possibility that you might get some help for it. And I mean, they have whole books they've written about how to do it. So, and I can connect you with the 99 and show you their book if you want me to.
Sounds good. We appreciate that.
Yeah, I'll check into it.
Anything else, Lloyd?
Yeah, Lloyd Hetrick again. I guess it goes without saying that this runway project had been anything but smooth. It cost us tens of thousands of dollars just the way this thing's been handled. But I just like to go on record the disappointment I've seen with it, the lack of communication, at least communicating with the operators out here as to what the plan is. I know we talked early in the game as to what they were going to do, but this coming in three different times, if not four, at 6 o'clock in the evening, and we didn't get it done. We're going to change our plans. People make plans. We got airplanes that plan on coming and going. It's kind of like telling somebody shut their business at the last minute. I would hope, if nothing else, we learn from this. I've been through, 35, 37 years here. We've done this at least twice. It's a concrete runway on 119, overlay on 1533 10, 15 years ago. It worked, even though it was devastating, not to this degree, but at least there was communication, there was talk, there was such things as, well, let's get the airport or the runway open so that we can get traffic in, and we'll just put a note out that says man and equipment around the runway, and the contractor would work with the traffic when it's coming and going. But we lost, to shut down the whole airport the night before, it's just not acceptable. It's poor practice. I know we're not going to be doing this for another 10 or 15 years, but I would hope city staff and at least see what we learned from this and go forward. That's all I want to say. So, thank you.
Thank you, Lloyd. Okay, next on the agenda is the scheduling of our advisory board meetings for next year. And Amanda has a couple scenarios that she's looked at, planning on virtual meetings or Zoom meetings similar to what we're doing now. It's continuing on in the near future. So she's checked on the availability of the room for us, and she's got a couple different ideas. So, Amanda.
This is Amanda Saheen, airport manager. So I've been working with the city manager's office on the schedule for this room and for Kurt's time back here to get us broadcast. It definitely had some complications compared to when we could just be out at the airport, but I think we have to plan that this is going to be how we are, and it may be the expectation even more back in person that these stay televised. If that's the case, it'll be, from now on. So the two there's a lot of advisory boards here in the city. And so the first Wednesday and second Thursday of the month were brought up to me as the best options for where there's not already something there. So I've come up with kind of a couple scenarios here. So kind of first one I'd say is recommend the first Wednesday of the second month of the quarter. I didn't want to throw it like January, that first week of January, a lot of people are gone. So that would be February 3rd, May 5th, August 4th, and November 3rd. Could also, if we'd prefer Thursdays, we could do the second Thursday of the first month of the quarter, which would be January 14th, April 8th, July 8th, and October 14th. Or we could do the second Thursday of the second month of the quarter, which would be February 11th, May 13th, August 12th, and November 11th. Don't know if anyone has a strong preference between Wednesdays or Thursdays.
Anybody have any thoughts on that?
Amanda, read me the dates for option 3 again.
February 11th, May 13th, August 12th, November 11th. November 11th is Veterans Day, I believe. So we're not closed, but federal offices are closed, so I didn't know about that date and about that option. Other than that, nothing else falls on a holiday that I noticed.
Amanda, this is Mike Kelly, and I would, if we're going to vote on this, I will vote against anything that includes November 11th.
Nancy Maloney here. If we actually have the air race coming and COVID doesn't close it down like it did in 2020, we may want to look at the first option on Wednesdays because we may need some action items in May to get ready for it. Is the only comment I have on any of the dates.
Yeah, this is Dan Bourne. Wednesday works better for me too, just as on a weekly basis. I'm less busy on Wednesday than I'm on Thursday.
There's no football either. Wednesdays.
There you go.
I mean, there might be basketball. I don't follow that game.
So, from what I'm hearing from everybody, this is Richard Haig, Chair. It sounds like the scenario 1, the Wednesdays would be the first Wednesday of the second month of a quarter would be the most ideal for the scheduling that we see coming up this year. If that's the case, I'd take a motion to approve the schedule to be the first Wednesday of the second month of each quarter for 2021.
What about time? Let's add
And-
time. Are we good with 6? It gets Kurt and everybody out of here quicker, but I don't know what you guys prefer time-wise.
I think 6 o'clock, for me anyway, is the best time.
We got another thumbs up.
Okay. So we have a motion to schedule that, and keep in mind, this is our planned meetings that they can be changed if events require or if something comes up that we need to.
Nancy Maloney here. I so move.
Monty Sokup, I'll second that.
Okay. Vote. Richard Haig, Chair. Aye.
Nancy Maloney,
Mike
aye.
Kelly, Vice Chair, aye.
Monty Sokup, aye.
Dan Bourne, aye.
So it passes 5-0. So that will be our tentative schedule for 2021.
February 3rd, May 5th, August 4th, November 3rd. I will get those on the city calendar so we can't get bumped. Well,
There you go. Maybe we'll be first in line for those days. All right. With all that, does anybody else have any other items before we adjourn the meeting?
It's just Ron Renz again. I didn't get a chance. I started to respond and you moved on. I'd just like to second Lloyd's comments about the airport runway project. Communication was not the best. It didn't really affect my business very much, but it did. I had to move an airplane and it cost extra to do that. And that I know it added hugely to Lloyd's costs. And better planning would have been better communication would have been better. And I mean, it's almost to the point where you try to make a phone call and it didn't happen to me much, but I know it happened to Lloyd because he was much more affected. You'd make phone calls and nobody would even call him back to know what was going on. That's not really good. I think a review of that, Amanda, would be a really, really important thing to do to learn from that so that we don't do that sort of thing again.
this is Amanda Saheen. I can tell you I never got a phone call that I didn't return. I'm not aware of that happening, so if that happened, please let me know. But yeah, that's not acceptable, and nothing like that, you know, that I'm aware of happened. I'm not going to say too much here, given that, you know, we've got the contractor still out there working, but we had a lot of challenges. We've done everything we could within the bounds of the contract to keep this thing moving as quickly as possible. Scheduling was a constant frustration. But at a certain point, we also, about our only recourse is to stop work, which wasn't going to benefit anybody. So we wanted to try to keep it moving. There was a lot of conversations on our side with ADG to try to keep that going and to try to get the contractor to be a little more forthcoming with the schedule. This most recent one was really a weather issue. Unfortunately, it wasn't really a foreseen issue this week. They thought they could finish it Tuesday, but as the mist continued kind of all day, it slowed things down. So unfortunately in construction, sometimes those weather things are unavoidable. They also had some pretty unfortunate luck with equipment when they went out and started, kind of early on, when they went out and started trimming, they had a drive shaft break, and that was going to be like a 6-week repair for that piece of equipment, and everything was already tore up. So they ended up borrowing the equipment from another contractor. And then they had just probably 3 weeks worth of pain of trying to get the systems that tell the grades, you know, all the GPS and total station stuff to the grade that it's supposed to be to. We had a lot of issues, them trying to get that equipment up and running to the level they needed it. So this, unfortunately, in construction, things don't always go well. This was a good example of that. I do think in the end, the product we got was good, but I will acknowledge, you know, some of the scheduling frustrations were there, and we did try the best we could to work with the contractor, but it was challenging at times.
Nancy Maloney here. Will Jason be putting out a notification that the runway, the airport's reopened again on Friday?
It's Josh. I'll talk to Josh about it. He's been really hesitant about over communicating to people, that they will start ignoring emails. And so he may choose that if nothing has changed from our last email, that I kind of defer to him for that as our public information officer. So I'll speak to him about it, and if he feels it's appropriate. I mean, do you guys have an opinion? I think he was hesitant this last time. Well, what changed? Because we're going to burn people out here with all these emails.
Well, my only issue is I may be slightly out of communication on Saturday morning coming back. I will check NOTAMs. So I'm hoping that I can fly back in on Saturday if nothing goes wrong. Looks to me like you may be getting some rain tomorrow, so I can obviously defer a day coming back, but I'd prefer not to.
Well, Rick just gave me an update that they're still painting tonight. So
Touch the paint.
So hopefully, I think he says it'll make tomorrow less stressful to meet that deadline. So supposed to open at 6 o'clock tomorrow night, and we should have a feeling of that in the morning. But that's at this point, everybody feels pretty confident in that. So
I'll be calling you, man.
okay.
Well, I think maybe we can encourage Josh to, because it is such a big deal to finally have it all open, that if they do get it open tomorrow evening, maybe he can just send the information, just a simple email, airport is open. And that would make it suffice. We wouldn't be overwhelmed with information, and I think everybody would share in the excitement.
Okay.
Anybody else?
I'd rather have too many boring emails than one exciting email that says, no, the airport's still closed.
Yeah. There you go.
It goes back to communication. Let him know that the best thing that you can do is let people know what's going on. It doesn't matter if it comes out 3 times a day, if it changes. More communication is better than less communication. That's my opinion.
All right. If there's nothing else, have a motion to adjourn.
Mike Kelly, I so move that we adjourn.
Monty.
Okay. Motion, I don't know that we need to have a vote, but Richard Haig, aye.
Mike Kelly, aye.
Nancy Maloney, aye.
Monty Sokup, aye.
Ian Bourne, aye.
And with that said, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
Thanks. Good night.
Are we off?